So, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for coming along to our webinar. I am going to share with you today a lot of secrets, how to scale and how to grow your company and what the considerations are, and hopefully it's going to be fun. My name is Felix Velarde. More or less by accident, in 1994, I started one of the world's first web design companies. And then I had a long career running agencies and consulting firms. And I did that for about 20 years. And then I was CEO of a group of companies, of 12 companies, and did a lot of M&A and really interesting strategic stuff. And then I kind of retired about 6 years ago. And I'm going to talk today about what I've done since I retired. And I'm going to tell you how we work and what we do and how we scale companies. And largely, my day job is watching business leaders and business management teams taking their companies to places that they really had no idea they were capable of doing. We always double the revenue of the companies that we work with. Sometimes we triple the revenue of the companies that we work with in the course of the 2-year program that I run, 2Y3X. And 2Y3X, you can see the logo and the URL on your screens right now. The 2Y3X program, we've now been running for 6 years. It's got a 100% track record of success. And we are now in the US. We've got clients in Canada. Although the other side of Canada, actually, for my Canadian friend, was it Frederick? Frederick, actually in Calgary. We also have clients all over Europe, Spain, the United Kingdom, Italy, and in the Middle East as well. And we're just about to open up in Africa, in Zambia. So we're truly international. We have a huge range of experience, an amazing bunch of consultants, all of whom have run their own businesses. They've all been CEOs and leaders. They've all made the mistakes. I've probably made more mistakes than most because I had 6 companies of my own. And we've learned from those mistakes. And what's interesting is that an awful lot of what we do is trial and error. As entrepreneurs and as business leaders, we spend an awful lot of time, much too much time, trying stuff, getting it wrong, when actually there's prior art and prior wisdom available. And so today I'm going to share with you everything that we've learned, or some of the key tools that we've learned that are designed to scale your business at speed. And as you can see also on your screen, there's the front cover of the book that has just been published, Scale at Speed, which I wrote, which is the manual for the 2Y3X program. So if you don't want to do the 2Y3X program with us, you can buy the book, read it, and do it for yourself. And today I'm going to share with you some of the key frameworks and processes to make that sort of self-service, if you like, easier for you, so that you understand the frameworks and can start putting some of the stuff in the book into practice. The book is available worldwide now in Kindle, Kobo, and Audible formats, and it's available in most English-speaking countries in paperback right now, and it comes out in paperback in the United States on the 26th or 27th of September, and it's available at all the bookshops that you've heard of. So please go and buy yourself an audio copy or the ebook version. And I should have said this earlier. If you'd have bought it earlier, you could have read along, but I'm going to take you through a presentation now of the key tools that will allow you to scale your business really fast. So forgive me for 1 second while I just fiddle with the tech and make sure that I can deliver what I hope I'm going to be able to deliver. Right, let's see. There we go. Can I have a thumbs up from anybody in the chat, please, just to say you can see a slide with some matches on it. Is that a yes? Yes, thank you. Yes. Good. The matches are fuzzy, but that's okay. The matches are a metaphor. I'm old. I'm in my early 50s. Back in the day, I used to smoke, and one of the big bugbears is you drop your box of matches on the floor and then you gather them up, you stick them in the box, and that doesn't fit. And one of the things that I discovered in my career, long career as an agency founder and CEO, is that it's not really about inventing new things in terms of business. It's not really about coming up with amazing insights. It's actually about putting the basics in the right order. And if you get the basics in the right order, then it makes what you do so much easier, so much easier. So I'm going to take you through those processes. So just just to make sure you are in the right place, how to prioritize for business growth. I'm literally going to tell you how to do this. This is me. My name is Felix Velarde. I spent 22 years as a serial agency founder. I founded the 2Y3X program a few years ago, and I'm the lead consultant of it, although I have colleagues. I've got a lead consultant in the US, Jim Stern, who's the head of the Data Analytics Association and the head of the Metric Summit, and written 12 books and lectures at MIT and Stanford and Harvard, and is much better at it than I am. So I'm surrounded by wonderful people who do this stuff and practice this stuff much better than I do. But I wrote the book, so I get all of the glory, and I get to sit in front of you and tell you all about it. So I hope you enjoy this session. As I say, please do ask questions as we go along. So where do we start? If you want to grow your company, one of the things that I've seen over and over and over again is there are several different stages of growth. And the first stage of growth is, have we got a product that we can sell at all to customers who might want it or clients that might want it? And the first part of growth is really a kind of survival of the fittest bit. It's that you get a few people together, your friend, your business partner, and you sort of gather a few people, and by sheer grit and determination, the skin of your teeth and force of will and chutzpah, you get your company more or less off the ground. And that first sort of trial period, I guess, is you trying to figure out what it is that customers will buy that you can deliver. So it's kind of product market fit period of growth. And it usually takes a year or so, maybe two, to get to your first million. And your first million is when you've proven that you've got a product that people are going to want to buy. You've also, at that first million, you've probably got 12 people around you, and you all work amazingly well. And, you know, if there's a big pitch, you pull an all-nighter. If somebody needs help because there's a deadline, you all muck in and you all do it together. And it's this amazing kind of close-knit family period of the first days of entrepreneurialism or entrepreneurship. And it's exhilarating. And you don't get much sleep and you're not very well paid. And then you get to 1 million and you realize you've got a business. And now that now you need to turn it into a proper business. And it's at that point that you realize that you probably need an expert or two. You probably need a production manager or a project manager or a head of client services or a head of growth, and probably your first finance person. And so suddenly you realize that you need a few experts in the room, not just people with energy. And it's a really interesting place, because this is the time where you get to actually start building a proper company, a company with processes and systems and ways of delivering on your promise to your customers and your clients. And that first sort of, okay, now we're a business, usually takes you to a couple of million. But often it takes quite a long time for you to break through the £1 million barrier or $1 million barrier. Then you break through it and you start building these processes, these ways of doing things. And then you get to 2 million and then you get stuck again. And that is called the business plateau. And it's the point at which you know you've got product market fit, you know that you've got customers, your customers start to love you, you know you're recruiting high quality people, and you don't know why you've stalled. And we call it the plateau of gloom. You got to this point, but you don't know why you can't grow any further. And at this point, you start doing this feast and famine thing. You start bumping up and down. You go to 900,000, then you go to 1.1 million, then you go to 950,000, then you go to 1 million. And it's really frustrating, and it can last 2 or 3 years. And I'll tell you why it happens. It happens because 2 reasons, really. First reason is all of the processes and ways that you've got of doing things, you've now perfected. And what you've perfected is how to do it at the scale you're at. And the problem is that if you want to be twice the size, the processes that you've got, unfortunately, they're perfect for the size you're at now. And they're no good for a company that's twice the size or 4 times the size. So you perfect and you perfect and you hone and you tighten this amazing process for staying the same size that you're at. And it's at this point, as I say, you realize that you want to grow, but you don't know how, you can't. So that's one of the reasons for this plateau of gloom. The other reason is usually you don't set your targets high enough. Most people say, well, we're at 1 million or we're at 2 million. Let's aim for 10% better this year or 20% better this year. And the problem with 10 or 20% better this year is that's more or less within the margin for error. And if you get it slightly wrong, or there's a little bit of a wobble in the market, or you lose your salesperson, then that 20% up might become 2% down. And again, you're still in this horrible space, this plateau of gloom. So you have optimized for where you're at, and then you haven't set your targets high enough, or ambitiously enough. So when I start working with clients, when we start working with clients on the 2Y3X program, the first thing we do is we say, right, your 20% target, we'll throw that away. Let's be ambitious. Because if you set your targets at, I don't know, 40% a year instead of 20% a year, in 3 years' time, you'll have doubled your revenue. If you set your targets at 70% a year, in 3 years' time, you'll have tripled your revenue. And there's a guy called Edwin Locke who did this amazing work called goal setting theory, and he's been doing it for the last 45 years. Goal setting theory basically says, if you set heroic targets, the heroes will step up. And the heroes are your growth team. They're the people, the superstars in your business who are really ambitious. So you set a really challenging target, and guess what? Everybody figures out a way to reach that target. If you don't set a challenging target, you'll kind of say, well, we'll get there anyway. If you say we're going to triple the size of our business, then you might actually have to stop and think, how are we going to do that? And then you'll write a plan. And if you have a plan, then firstly, any plan of action is better than no plan of action. And secondly, any plan that you actually follow relentlessly is infinitely better than the best plan in the world that stays in a drawer. So we spend a lot of time goal setting, because if we set an ambitious enough goal, then we have the excuse to write a plan. So I'm going to talk to you about that and what the plan looks like and how we do this. So first thing we do, reset the target, make it ridiculous. In Jim Collins's terms, make it a big, hairy, audacious goal. So that's what we do. Then secondly, where are we? We start doing something called the strategy map. And the strategy map is, okay, now we've got this amazing, challenging, scary, big, hairy, audacious target. Now we need to put together a plan of action. So I'm going to show you the tools that we use and share with you the framework so that you can do this plan of action yourself. And the way that it works is it makes some assumptions. It makes some common sense assumptions, actually. Personally speaking, all my common sense always came from my partners. You may be filled to the brim with common sense yourself. But a lot of this is common sense. And the way that the strategy map works is by basically saying, listen, if we do lots of little things, but we make sure that they're complete and they're the right things, as we go along, these things will stack up and we'll be able to build our growth on them. And some of these things are going to be obvious, like, you know, sorting out your proposition, getting your marketing right, or motivating your superstars. Some of them are not obvious. And that's where we come in, or, you know, the book comes in. But there's a lot of things that you should do that most people don't do. Risk registers, for example. I'll come back to that later. So the basic premise is we build a plan of action, and each of the elements of the plan becomes a building block, and those building blocks become our platform for growth, for hitting our target, which kind of looks cute and neat and so on, but it actually takes quite a lot of work. Now, why do you want to hit this great target? A lot of businesses are really, really great as they are. They don't need to grow. So the companies we work with tend to be companies that are run by owner entrepreneurs who want to come up with some kind of exit event. What I mean by an exit event is selling the company to a buyer, to a bigger company, to their employees even. And so this exit goal usually means I want to sell my company for a few $1 million, or $20 million, or $50 million, but there's an exit event. So we need to define right at the beginning what this big, hairy, audacious goal is in terms of how we're expressing this exit event. So if we're going to exit the business, then we probably want to sell the business for, call it, I don't know, $8 million. Now, if you want to sell your business for $8 million in agency world, which is the one where I do most of the M&A transactions for my clients, then to get $8 million as a sale value, you want to be doing $1.5 million in net profit. But if we set money on its own, then there are infinitely easier ways of making money. You know, you set yourself up, well, I was going to say an OnlyFans site, but they've just changed all the rules. But you import paper clips from China and sell them for a penny more. There are lots of ways of making money. So we need to define what kind of company we are and what our market views us as being, and what kind of place we are to work. So when we work with clients, we usually have a kind of a market position goal. So in this case, I'm going to use the example of agency of the year. And we have a culture goal. And the culture goal might be the best place to work in the whole of New York State. Or it might be to win some culture award. I'm using here a proxy for that as a staff net promoter score of 9.5. What I mean by that is 95% of our staff would recommend, strongly recommend, this place as a place to work to their friends and their colleagues. It's a great marker or indicator of whether you've got good culture, is whether your greatest staff, your best staff, want other people like them to come and work with them. So we set this at the end of a 3-year period, and 3 years is a great period because it's far enough away that it's not too intimidating. It's possible, it's achievable. It's 3 years, but it's far enough away that we can make a plan, and we can create this plan of action. And so the way that the strategy map works is really interesting. We start at the end with the goals, then we work our way backwards. So in this case, I'm going to say, we're going to start the end of 2024. We're going to have sold the company. We're going to have sold it for the right amount of money, because we'll be making $1.5 million EBIT at that point, net profit at that point. At the same time, it'll be an amazing place to work, and our industry peers will envy us. So what are we doing in 2024 for all this to happen? What has to be happening? What has to be going on for this stuff to be true, right? And so we need to start thinking about that. And the way the strategy map works is once we've decided what's going on in 2024, we then figure out what's happening in 2023. And once we figured that out, we then need to figure out what's happening next year in 2022 to be able to allow 2023 to happen, right? Now that it could be quite a mishmash. So we simplify it, we make it easier on ourselves by dividing this up into different kind of buckets, I guess. We have a work stream which is all about people. We have a work stream all about clients and customers, another one about sales and marketing, another one about processes, and another one about corporate and finance. And the way that this works, it makes it much easier. So let's take the people bit first. Let's say that we're going to be making $1.5 million net profit at the end of 2024. It's going to be an amazing place to work. And you, if you're the CEO or the owner, you're going to have left at the end of 2024. So first thing that needs to be happening is you need a team running the business so that you can leave. We call that team the Growth Lab team because they're the people who are going to be responsible for growing the business over the course of the next 3 years, putting in place all of these amazing transformative processes and ways of doing things. And they, by the time you leave, they will be the succession team. So in 2024, they need to be running the business. What needs to be happening in 2023 for that to be possible? Well, they need to be practicing. And the year before that, which is this year, we need to identify the Growth Lab team. We need to recruit them. We need to train them in how it works. We need to show them what good looks like and make sure we've got the right people on that team. So we've started at the end and we've worked our way backwards. And if we're talking about culture, then in 2024, the culture has got to be absolutely amazing. So in 2023, we need to make sure that the only people on our team, the only people in the business, they're all A players and that they're incentivized properly, that we've got a remuneration structure in place or, whether that's share options or if we hit targets, we'll make a charity donation to a charity of your choice or whatever the way that you decide to incentivize your team is. And then this year, we need a hiring strategy to make sure that everybody we hire from here on in is an A player. And we need a training program, CPD stands for Continuous Professional Development Program, so that we are helping our team to become the best they can possibly be. So I hope all that makes sense. So we do this across the whole piece. As I say, we start with 2024. So in 2024, we've got the Growth Lab team in charge. We've got the culture being sorted. We've got 12 clients paying us 600 grand each. We are the market leader. Our processes are all nailed on. And because we want to sell, we've got all of our financial data lined up in a data room so that the buyer can just come in and see what we've got and make their decision based on the information we've already gathered for them. And then we work on what's happening in 2023, then in 2022, and this produces us a huge set, usually 20 things of 20 different things that we've got to do in 2022 that are tasks. We're going to have to put in place a training program. We're going to have to put in place a new hiring strategy. We're going to have to put in place job scorecards and a new proposition, new website maybe, a process for measuring whether or not we're being efficient and effective with our time, processes for understanding whether our clients are happy with us and how we can improve. All of these things go into the 2022 task list. So when we're working with clients, this is a 2-year program. We only work the first 2 years of this. In 2024, you're on your own. And the reason for that is because all of the real change-making stuff happens in the first year and then is consolidated in the second year. And then by the end of the process, our process, the 2 years of the 2Y3X program, you will have delivered all of the things that are going to result in you reaching your goals. So we do the same thing. We set a target. Now that target might be might not be a numeric target. It might be just a target. We want to turn ourselves around. We want to change from having to go out and sell. We want companies coming to us. And we want our people ready. We want our people ready to aggressively grow the company in 3 months flat. So same kind of people, clients, sales and marketing processes, corporate and financial, same goal in the top right-hand corner. But this time, instead of it being 2024, 2023, 2022, it's now month 3, month 2, month 1. So it's a very rapid way of deploying this. And the way that it works is, again, we figure out what's happening in the last month, and we figure out what has to happen first, second, and third. And we put it all into order. And the way that we do this is we gather the team, a team of 2 or 3 people, if you're a small company, or maybe 5 or 6 people. And together you'll figure out all of the things that are required, all the things that you're going to need to happen across this whole 3-month period. So we teach you in the accelerator how to identify the right people to bring onto this growth team, because they'll be making decisions about how you go forward. They'll be making decisions with your leadership team, with you, about what needs to be done and how to do it. We will, you then need to learn how to motivate them. And the way that to motivate superstars and A players really is to get them involved. It's to get them involved in designing the future. Because if you get them involved in designing the future, then they will want you they will want to go there with you. One of the problems with top-down management is, if I tell you what, I'm the leader, I'm the boss, I tell you what to do, then you'll resist change. Especially if I'm the kind of boss that comes in with change grenades every now and again. So I've figured out a new way of, I read a new book and it told me a new way of doing things. There becomes a time when there's a lot of resistance. So to overcome the resistance, you get your team to design the process. So all you need to do is you need to understand how this works and have the framework, but you get your team to populate all of these different things. So, you know, you want the right people on the bus. So somebody needs to be responsible for identifying who the brilliant people are in the business. Then those people need to come onto this team, this growth team. So you need to be the one responsible for identifying your A players. Then with the growth team, you need to figure out who the C players are, the disengaged people, the people who hold you back, who are the naysayers, if you like, the people who gripe and grumble and resist change. And you know the people, you know who they are. And frankly, you should have got rid of them already. There'll be an A player somewhere else where they fit the culture. But so we design all of these tasks. We work out what order these need to go into, right? What's your new proposition comes before redoing your website. And that comes before doing your marketing campaign. So they have to go in that order. So with your team, you're going to be looking at these and figuring out what the most important things. Perhaps there's urgent, you know, maybe you're cash poor and you need to figure out how to get cash in. Well, you know, do you need to go to your bank and do invoice financing? Or do you need to tighten up your invoice control, your payment processing? You need to prioritize. There are going to be some things that are really urgent. What else? You might need to cut your cloth according to your resources. If right now you're losing money, then you need to figure out why you're losing money. That might take some introspection. It might take doing timesheets to figure out which clients are not profitable. Figuring out how to measure your KPIs properly. Somebody's asked a question which is really interesting. Over these, and I'm going to address it right now. How does culture change when you're growing your agency or your company from 40 to 100 people? So the biggest culture changes happen at that $1 million point, because at that point you need to hire professionals. Then at that 2 million point, where you're probably around 24 people, at that $2 million point, you now need to start devising and designing the next generation of processes. That's the point at which your culture starts to change and you start professionalizing as a company and as an agency. And this Growth Lab team, if you recruit the Growth Lab team when you are 40 people, so I would imagine that you are probably $3.5 million to $4.5 million at 40 people, then, and you start implementing the strategy map process, the first part of the process is how to recruit the team. How do you recruit the Growth Lab team? How do you identify who they should be? And I'll tell you now, they need to be the A players. And they should not necessarily be the senior management team. The senior management team has a vested interest in keeping the company running exactly the way that it's running right now. Yeah. They don't have a vested interest in throwing away all of the stuff, the way that they do things, the culture that they've built. They don't have a vested interest in doing that. But you need to, if you want to transform your business, if you want to double or triple in size, you have to change the way that you do things. And necessarily that's going to change the culture. So the reason that you get the Growth Lab team involved, and the Growth Lab team has got to have one of your 22-year-olds who is going to be a superstar one day and is going to have their own company, their own agency, and you know it, right? You need an individual contributor who's a genius, brilliantly creative, but doesn't run a department. You need somebody who is a polymath, who's just great at getting other people involved and can persuade people and is a brilliant relationship maker. So they don't have to be and shouldn't be just necessarily the heads of department. They should be the people who you would like to see being the future of your agency. And as they design all of these tasks, as they identify which tasks to do, whether you do this in the 3-month version or in the 2-year version, as they identify the first year's tasks, and they start to figure out how to make these things happen in your company. You know, how do we do account plans for all of our clients? Well, that's a process change, right? That's going to affect a whole group of people and is going to change the way that they think and the way that they relate to their clients. And by setting them the challenge of growing up, the culture is going to become much more responsible and much more shared responsibility. People are going to hold each other to account more. And to my mind, one of the reasons that I love having a culture goal, you know, this place has got our agency's got a net promoter score from staff of 9.5 or employee engagement score of 97% or whatever your cultural marker is it forces you to think about how you deliver culture, how you make this place an amazing place to be. There's an entrepreneur, Richard Branson, who you will have heard of, Virgin, who says, train people well enough that they can leave and build a culture that's strong enough that they don't want to. And so training programs and continuous professional development and making this place amazing doesn't mean foosball in the corner or free bananas on Tuesday. Culture comes from this place being an amazing place to learn and to develop and to grow and to have influence and to be responsible for positive change. And so that's why you grow the Growth Lab team. That's why it's so important. I love the idea of the Growth Lab team, and I love the fact that it's separated from the senior management team. The senior management team is responsible for maintaining things, for making it run smoothly. The Growth Lab team is responsible for transforming things for the better. Let me move on a little before I address other questions. Other things, absolutely, the first thing that you've got to do, get rid of your C players. Your C players, people who hold you back. Usually, I'll say, who are your C players to a management team? And they'll say, well, it's Johnny and it's Sally and it's James. And why haven't you got rid of them yet? Well, James is responsible for buying beers on Friday. It's kind of, really? Your C player, you're disengaged, your person who holds you back who's responsible for your social life, really? Everybody, once you get rid of your C players, and you all know, if you've got a team of 40 or 100 or 20 people, you know who they are. They will be happier somewhere else. You will be happier once they're gone. Do it now. First priority. What else do you need to address? Do you know what your clients really think of you? Client satisfaction survey, hugely important. Monthly, has to be monthly. Asking them to score you on proactivity and strategic input and creativity and value for money and on time and on budget and things like that. 7 questions usually is all that does it. But you need to poll them monthly. Gives you an early warning system for clients who might be considering leaving. Gives you a heads up when your staff aren't engaging with your clients properly. It gives you a heads up when you think you're great at doing things on time, but your clients don't. You need to manage their expectations better. Client satisfaction survey for agency businesses, hugely important. Tells you how to build relationships. So there's a whole bunch of these things. You know, figure out who's going to be spending right now because they're coming out of their COVID kind of protective behavior. Figure out which of your clients are going to want to aggressively grab market because they're the ones who are going to carry you with them. What else? You need to address your proposition and make sure that your proposition is absolutely crystal clear. I want to go down a list. If I'm a client, I want to go down a list and I want your name to jump out because you are the agency that delivers extraordinary audience engagement, or we make tired brands famous again, or with a creative agency for entrepreneurs, we do a lot of proposition work, and those are 3 good examples. Your proposition needs to absolutely nail your colors to the mast so that clients can find you, so that superstars in your industry can find you, so that you know what direction you should be going in. Once you've got your proposition, then you need to address your marketing. We need to make sure that your pricing is appropriate and ideally premium and so on. All marketing starts with proposition. Proposition starts with identifying your values. Understanding your values allows you to identify people who don't share them. I guarantee they're your C players and you can ship them out to somewhere else where they'll be A players because they do fit the values. So that's the 2Y3X program and the Scale at Speed Accelerator in a nutshell. I think that the most important aspects of, you know, the things to get you off the ground, where you should start, are get rid of your C players, build an A player team to build this process. And start with things like understanding your clients, because your clients are your biggest risk, because if they go, you're stuffed. But your biggest opportunity, because most clients want to know that you can do the things that they want and want to know that you're listening to them and that you want to improve. Your proposition, absolutely. If your proposition is woolly, I can't tell you how many agencies I've seen who say, we do everything. And they say that just in case Coca-Cola is going to phone them up and ask them to be their ad agency. Coca-Cola is not phoning you up to be their ad agency, right? They've got one. But if you are the very best at doing hybrid events, real world and digital merged events, if Coca-Cola needs hybrid events and you are the best in the world at that, guess who they're going to call? So be very specific about who you are and what you do. Coming up with your proposition requires you to understand your personal values. It requires you to understand what you're great at and what you really want. And understanding your personal values is incredibly important. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that is high priority. If you're doing the short version, then it can be done in a very fast, as I say, the accelerator we run, it runs over 8 weeks and is a 3-month accelerator. It's fast start to get you off the ground. But if you can afford the time, and if you can afford the whatever it is, $14.99 or whatever it costs to buy the book, Scale at Speed, and the time that it will take you and your superstar team to go through the book and figure out how to deploy it for yourselves, I think that that's incredibly useful time to figure out what your plan of action is, because if you're going to set yourself ambitious goals, and you should set yourself ambitious goals, if you're going to set yourself ambitious goals, then you need a plan of action. You need to figure out how you're going to reach those goals. And this methodology, the 2Y3X strategy map and roadmap, are an incredibly efficient, incredibly effective, more or less bomb-proof way of doing it.